My best friend Sofia called me at 2 a.m. from somewhere over the Atlantic. "Blaire, I need you to check something for me right now," she said, her voice shaking. "Is Henry home?" I walked down the hallway to our bedroom. Henry was asleep, his arm draped over my pillow, softly snoring like he did every night. "Yeah, he's right here. Fast asleep. Why are you calling me at 2 in the morning?" The silence on the other end made my stomach drop. "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're a subscriber, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you." "That's impossible," she whispered. "Because I just served champagne to a man who looks exactly like Henry in first class. He's flying to Monaco with a woman. He introduced her to the crew as his business partner. Blaire, he's wearing that custom Breitling watch you had engraved for your anniversary. The one with your initials on the back." Then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned slowly. Henry stood in the doorway, rubbing his eyes, asking if everything was okay. My husband was in two places at once. And one of them was a lie. I'm Blaire Stackhouse, and until that phone call, I thought I had my life figured out. I'm a data analyst for a pharmaceutical company. I spend my days finding patterns in clinical trial results, spotting anomalies that everyone else misses. Numbers don't lie. Data doesn't deceive. Or at least, that's what I used to believe. Henry and I had been married for 9 years. 9 years of what I thought was a solid, if somewhat routine, marriage. He worked as a corporate strategist for a consulting firm, traveling constantly for client meetings. I worked from home most days, buried in spreadsheets and statistical models. We had a beautiful colonial house in Westchester, 2 cars, a golden retriever named Biscuit, and a mortgage we were steadily paying down. Our life seemed ordinary. The surface was perfect. Until Sofia's call. Sofia McGee had been my best friend since college. We'd been roommates for 3 years, survived terrible boyfriends together, celebrated each other's weddings. After graduation, she pursued her dream of seeing the world and became a flight attendant for a luxury international airline. She flew first-class routes to Paris, Tokyo, Dubai, Monaco, places I'd only seen in magazines. She worked premium routes, knew her regular passengers, had access to booking details that most flight attendants never saw. We talked every week, but she'd never called me at 2 a.m. before. "Sofia, what are you talking about?" I said, keeping my voice low so Henry wouldn't hear. He'd gone back to bed, mumbling something about early meetings. "Henry's been home all week. He has that big presentation on Friday. He's been stressed and working late in his office every night. Blaire, I'm looking at him right now." Her voice cracked. "I've known Henry for almost as long as I've known you. I watched him propose to you on that beach in Maine. I was at your wedding. I know what he looks like." My hand started shaking. "Send me a photo. Right now. I can't just take pictures of passengers, Blaire. That's against policy. But I'll try to get something discreet." I stood there in my dark hallway, phone pressed to my ear, listening to the ambient noise of an aircraft cabin, the low hum of engines, muffled conversations, the distant sound of a beverage cart. "What else can you tell me?" I asked, my analyst brain kicking in. "Details. I needed details. He boarded in New York about 4 hours ago. JFK. First class seat 2A. The woman is in 2B. She's blonde, late 30s, wearing a Chanel suit that probably costs more than my monthly rent. They ordered champagne before takeoff. Dom Perignon. Henry hated champagne. Said it gave him headaches. We'd had that conversation at least a dozen weddings. They seem comfortable together, Sofia continued. Like they've done this before. The way she touches his arm when she talks. The way he leans toward her. Blaire, they requested the honeymoon package meal service. My chest tightened. The what? It's this special couples service we offer on premium routes. Synchronized meals, shared dessert, the whole romantic presentation. You have to request it when you book. It's not something you just casually order. I walked to Henry's office, the spare bedroom he'd converted into his workspace 2 years ago. His laptop sat closed on the desk. His briefcase leaned against the wall. A coffee mug from this afternoon, still half full, sat on a coaster. Nothing appeared out of place. Everything looked exactly like it should if my husband had been home all week preparing for a presentation. My phone buzzed. A text from Sofia. The photo loaded slowly, my Wi-Fi crawling. When the image finally appeared, something inside me fractured. There was Henry. Unmistakably Henry. Same dark hair with the gray starting at his temples. Same strong jawline. Same slight scar above his right eyebrow from a skiing accident in college. Same Breitling watch with the blue face, the one I'd saved for 3 months to buy him, the one I'd had engraved with, "Forever, B," on the back. He sat in a plush first-class seat, leaning close to a stunning blonde woman. They were both looking at something on his phone, laughing. Real laughter. The kind that comes from shared jokes and easy intimacy. But what made my blood run cold wasn't the intimacy. It was what he was wearing. That navy Tom Ford blazer. The one I'd picked up from the dry cleaners on Monday. The one that was supposed to be hanging in our bedroom closet right now. I walked back to our bedroom on legs that didn't feel connected to my body. Opened the closet doors with hands that had started trembling. The Tom Ford blazer was gone. So were 3 of his favorite dress shirts. His leather weekender bag, the one he'd had since before we met, wasn't on its usual shelf. I stood there in my closet, surrounded by clothes and shoes and the architecture of a normal life, and realized I had no idea who I was married to. I didn't sleep. How could I? Instead, I sat in the dark living room with my laptop, doing what I do best, analyzing data, looking for patterns, finding the anomalies. Henry's calendar synced to our shared Google account. I pulled it up. This week showed, Monday through Thursday, client prep, Meridian account. Friday, Meridian presentation, 9 a.m. Nothing about Monaco. Nothing about travel. But Henry traveled all the time. At least twice a month, sometimes more. Boston, Chicago, Atlanta, San Francisco. Always for client meetings, strategy sessions, pitch presentations. He'd come home exhausted, complaining about hotel pillows and airport delays and terrible conference room coffee. I opened a spreadsheet, my comfort zone, and started building a timeline. Every trip he'd taken in the last 6 months. Dates, destinations, stated purposes. Then I cross-referenced his credit card statements. That's when the first crack appeared. I stared at that charge for a full minute. The Peninsula, Paris. I'd looked at that hotel once for our anniversary trip, but it was too expensive. We'd gone to a bed and breakfast in Vermont instead. I scrolled further back. February 8th to 10th, Henry in Boston 4, client workshops. Joint cards showed Boston charges. Premium cards showed Claridge's in London. £1,234. January 20th to 22nd, Henry in Atlanta 4, quarterly planning. Joint card showed Atlanta. Premium card showed Hotel Café Royal, also London. £978. The pattern was unmistakable. Every business trip had a shadow trip. A second location. A second hotel. All luxury properties. All in Europe. My hands moved across the keyboard, building the spreadsheet, color-coding the anomalies. Red for confirmed trips. Blue for shadow trips. Yellow for charges I couldn't immediately explain. The spreadsheet grew. 6 months of data. 12 business trips. 12 shadow trips. Total spending on the premium card, $47,000. I'd never received a single piece of jewelry, a single luxury gift, a single explanation for these charges. At 6 a.m., I heard Henry's alarm go off upstairs. The shower started running. I closed my laptop and went to the kitchen, made coffee like I did every morning. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. When he came downstairs 20 minutes later, dressed in a crisp white shirt and gray slacks, I was sitting at the breakfast bar with my mug, scrolling through my phone like nothing was wrong. "Morning," he said, kissing the top of my head. Same routine. Same gesture. Same everything. "Morning," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Big day today?" "The Meridian presentation." He poured coffee into his travel mug. "I'm nervous. This could be a major account for us." I watched him move through our kitchen. The way he always left the cabinet doors slightly open. The way he tapped his wedding ring against his mug, a nervous habit he'd had for years. Time to test him. "Oh, I forgot to ask, how was your dinner with Jonathan last night?" I said casually. Henry paused, just for a fraction of a second. "Jonathan? Yeah, didn't you say you two were getting together to prep for today?" "Oh, right." He smiled, recovering smoothly. "It was good. Productive. We went over the entire pitch deck." Jonathan Fairmont was Henry's work partner. They'd founded the consulting firm together 6 years ago. I'd had lunch with Jonathan's wife Emily just last week. She'd mentioned Jonathan was in Seattle all week for a family emergency. His father had a stroke. Henry had just lied to me. Smoothly, easily, without hesitation. "Where'd you go?" I pressed. "That new Italian place downtown. Carmine's, I think." I nodded, made a mental note. Carmine's closed 3 months ago. There'd been a small article in the local paper about it. "How's the risotto there?" I asked. "Incredible. Best I've had in years." Another lie. Effortless. I took a sip of coffee, forcing my face to remain neutral. 9 years of marriage. 9 years of what I thought was partnership, honesty, trust. And he was standing in our kitchen, lying about where he had dinner, lying about who he was with, lying about a restaurant that didn't even exist anymore. "I should get going," Henry said, checking his watch, that Breitling that was supposed to be on a plane to Monaco. Except it wasn't. It was right here, on his wrist. My brain stuttered. The watch in Sofia's photo. The watch on his wrist. 2 watches. "You okay?" Henry asked, studying my face. "You look pale." "Just tired. Didn't sleep well." He kissed my forehead. "Get some rest today. I'll probably be late tonight. The team wants to celebrate if the presentation goes well." I watched him grab his briefcase, his keys, his coffee. Watched him walk to the garage door. "Henry?" I called out. He turned back. "Yeah? I love you." His smile was warm, genuine, completely convincing. "Love you too, Blaire." The garage door closed behind him. I heard his car start, heard him pull out of the driveway. Then I ran upstairs to our bedroom and opened the safe hidden in our closet floor. We kept important documents there. Passports, birth certificates, the deed to the house, some emergency cash. I pulled out the passports with shaking hands. 2 passports. Both with Henry's name. Both with Henry's photo. But different passport numbers. I opened the first one. Crisp, new pages. No stamps. Issued 3 months ago. The second passport was older, worn. Our trip to Italy 4 years ago. The wedding in Mexico. The conference in Toronto. This was the real one. The one I'd seen him use dozens of times. If the real passport was here, in our safe, what passport had the man on Sofia's flight used? My phone rang. "Sofia. Blaire, they just landed in Nice. They're taking a helicopter to Monaco." I overheard them talking to the ground crew coordinator. "Sofia, I need you to tell me everything. Every single detail you noticed. There's more, she said quietly. The woman's name is on the passenger manifest. Dorothy Jameson. She's listed as traveling with Henry Stackhouse, business class upgrade purchase together. Blaire, they booked these tickets 2 months ago. 2 months ago. While I was home, analyzing pharmaceutical data, walking biscuit, making dinner, believing I had a normal marriage. I'm sending you something else, Sofia said. A video. I shouldn't, but you need to see this. My phone buzzed. A video file. I pressed play. The footage was shaky, clearly filmed discreetly. It showed Henry and Dorothy walking through the first-class cabin. His hand on the small of her back. Her leaning into him. Both of them laughing at something. Then Henry stopped, pulled her close, and kissed her. Not a friendly kiss. Not a business partner kiss. A kiss that spoke of familiarity. Of intimacy. Of something that had been going on for a very long time. I watched the video 3 times. Then I called the one person I knew could help me figure out what the hell was happening. My sister Rose had worked as a private investigator for 8 years before retiring to teach criminology. If anyone could help me unravel this, it was her. She answered on the second ring. Rose, I said, my voice finally cracking. I need your help. Something's wrong. Something's really, really wrong. Rose arrived at my house 90 minutes later, carrying a sleek black duffel bag that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. She'd retired from PI work 2 years ago to focus on teaching, but I knew she still kept her equipment, still maintained her licenses, still had contacts in places most people didn't know existed. Show me everything, she said, not bothering with pleasantries. I walked her through it all. Sofia's call. The photo. The video. The duplicate passports. The shadow credit card charges. The lies about dinner with Jonathan. The missing clothes from our closet. Rose listened without interrupting, her face shifting from concern to something harder, more focused. This was the expression I remembered from family gatherings when someone would mention a case she was working on. The investigator, not the sister. The watch, she said when I finished. You said the man on the plane was wearing Henry's Breitling. The engraved one. Yes. And Henry wore it to work this morning? Yes. Rose opened her duffel bag and pulled out what looked like a high-end camera with specialized attachments. I need to see the watch Henry's wearing. Up close. Without him knowing. How am I supposed to do that? He's at work. Text him. Tell him you're bringing him lunch to celebrate before his big presentation. You've done that before, right? I had. Maybe 4 or 5 times over the years. Spontaneous gestures that Henry always seemed to appreciate. I sent the text, want me to bring you lunch? I know you're nervous about the presentation. Your favorite from Angelo's? The reply came 30 seconds later, that would be amazing. Presentation got moved to 2 p.m. so I have time. Meet me at 12:30. There's a camera in the tip. When you hand it to him to sign something, a receipt, anything, I'll get a clear image of the watch. The engraving on the back, specifically. You think it's a fake? I think we need to verify everything. Trust nothing right now, Blaire. Nothing. At 12:15, I drove to Henry's office building in downtown White Plains, a glass tower that housed a dozen consulting firms and tech startups. I'd been here countless times. I knew the security guard by name. I knew which elevator bank to take to the 7th floor. Henry met me in the lobby of Stackhouse and Fairmont Consulting, all smiles and gratitude. He looked relaxed, confident. Not like a man living a double life. You're a lifesaver, he said, taking the bag of Italian food. I was about to settle for vending machine pretzels. We sat in the small break room. I watched him eat, watched him make small talk about the presentation, about a difficult client, about wanting to take me out to dinner this weekend to a new French place that just opened. Oh, I almost forgot, I said, pulling out a printed receipt from my purse, something I'd grabbed randomly from my desk drawer. Can you sign this? I need it for the insurance thing. What insurance thing? The home insurance. They need both our signatures for the policy renewal. It was complete nonsense, but Henry didn't question it. He took the pen I offered, Rose's camera pen, and signed the receipt. I watched his hand. The watch glinted under the fluorescent lights. The same blue face. The same silver band. You know, I said casually, I still love that watch. Best anniversary gift I ever bought you. Henry glanced at it, smiled. I never take it off. You know that. Can I see the engraving? I want to remember if I did, forever, be, or if love, be. I can't remember what I told the jeweler. He hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. Then he unclasped the watch and handed it to me. I turned it over. The engraving was there, forever, be. The letters were perfect. The spacing exact. But something was wrong. Something I couldn't quite articulate. All good? Henry asked. Perfect, I said, handing it back. I left 20 minutes later, carrying the empty lunch bag and the camera pen. Henry kissed me goodbye in the elevator lobby, told me he'd be home by 8, told me he loved me. I smiled and said I loved him too. Back at my house, Rose had set up a laptop on the dining room table. She connected the pen to a USB port and pulled up the footage. The watch appeared on screen in high definition. Rose zoomed in on the engraving, enhanced the image, then pulled up a photo I'd taken of the real watch 2 years ago for insurance documentation. She placed the images side by side. Look at the serif on the F, she said, pointing. In the original, it has a slight curve. This one is completely straight. And the spacing between forever and be, it's off by 0.5 millimeter. What does that mean? It means that's not the original watch. It's a replica. An expensive one, probably custom-made to match the original exactly. But it's not the same watch. My stomach dropped. So the man on the plane has the real watch. Yes. And there's more. Rose pulled up another image. See this? He had at least 2 replica watches made, identical down to the engraving, but with micro differences only technology can detect. One for whoever's living in your house. Probably one for himself as backup. So Henry, my Henry, the one here, has a fake. Rose pulled out another device from her bag, something that looked like a modified tablet. I need you to think very carefully. When was the last time you're absolutely certain Henry was Henry? Not just looked like Henry. But something only he would know, something only he could do. I thought back through the weeks. The months. When had I last been certain? I don't know, I whispered. Rose, I don't know. She opened a program on the tablet. I'm going to need access to your security cameras. The ones you have at your front door and in the garage. We'd installed them 2 years ago after a string of package thefts in the neighborhood. Simple cameras that recorded to the cloud. Rose pulled up the footage from the past 3 months, then opened some kind of analysis software I didn't recognize. This is facial recognition software, she explained. But it's not the kind police use. This maps micro-expressions, gait patterns, unconscious behaviors. Things that are almost impossible to fake even with training. She ran Henry through the algorithm. Footage from 3 months ago. 2 months ago. 1 month ago. Last week. The program beeped. Red flags appeared on the screen. What is that? I asked. Rose's face had gone pale. Blaire, the man who came home 8 weeks ago isn't the same man who left. What are you talking about? She pulled up split-screen footage. Henry from 10 weeks ago walking to his car. Henry from last week doing the same thing. Look at the gait. 10 weeks ago, he favors his left leg slightly, old injury. College football. Torn ACL. He had surgery. The man from last week doesn't favor anything. His gait is completely symmetrical. And look here, she pointed to another section of the analysis. Micro-expressions. The way his mouth moves when he smiles. 10 weeks ago, the left side of his smile is slightly higher. Last week, it's perfectly symmetrical. I stared at the screen. That's impossible. People don't just change their walk, their expressions. Not unless they're different people. Rose looked at me with something like pity. Blaire, I think someone has been impersonating Henry. Living in your house. Sleeping in your bed. For at least 8 weeks. The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of the table. Who? How? Why? Rose was already typing on her laptop, pulling up databases I didn't have access to. I have a friend who works in theatrical prosthetics and body doubles for films. This level of impersonation, it's possible, but it requires resources. Money. Planning. You think Henry hired someone to replace him? I think we need to find out who that man is sleeping in your house. And I think we need to do it tonight, before he realizes we know. Rose left at 4 to gather some equipment. She told me to act completely normal when Henry came home. Smile. Ask about the presentation. Don't let him suspect anything. But I couldn't just sit there waiting. I needed answers. And I knew exactly where to find them. I pulled up every bank account, every credit card, every financial record I could access. Henry handled most of our finances. He was better with money, he always said. I focused on my work, he managed the investments and savings. A division of labor that had seemed practical at the time. Now it seemed like a massive blind spot. I started with the premium credit card, the one showing all those European hotel charges. I downloaded statements going back 2 years and imported them into Excel. Then I started categorizing every single charge. Luxury hotels in London, Paris, Monaco, Milan. Always 5-star properties. Always during Henry's supposed business trips. But there was more. Cartier, London, £12,400 Van Cleef & Arpels, Paris, €18,600 Bulgari, Monaco, €22,100. I'd never received jewelry from any of these stores. Not for our anniversary. Not for my birthday. Nothing. My hands shook as I kept scrolling. Private car services. Michelin-starred restaurants. A yacht charter in the French Riviera for €8,500. Every charge was during Henry's business trips. Every charge was in cities he'd supposedly visited for work. But these weren't business expenses. These were romantic getaways. Then I found something that made my blood run cold. Wire transfers. Dozens of them. Each one for $9,800. I knew that number. Years of compliance training had taught me, banks have to report any transaction over $10,000 to the IRS. These transfers were deliberately structured to stay just under that threshold. It's called structuring. And it's completely illegal. I counted the transfers. 43 of them over the past 18 months. All going to an account I didn't recognize. An account at a bank in the Cayman Islands. $9,800 times 43 equals $421,400. $421,000. Gone. Transferred to an offshore account in amounts specifically designed to avoid detection. I pulled up our joint savings account. The one we'd been building for years. The one that was supposed to have $340,000 for our future, a bigger house, maybe kids, early retirement. Current balance, $87,000. Over $250,000 had vanished from our savings. I opened our investment accounts. The retirement funds Henry had insisted on managing himself. More money missing. Another $180,000 transferred out over the past year, moved in small increments that I'd never noticed. I got quarterly statements, saw the numbers, but Henry always explained them. Market adjustments, he'd say. Rebalancing the portfolio. I'd trusted him. Why wouldn't I? He was my husband. My phone buzzed. A text from Henry. Presentation went amazing. They loved it. Going out for drinks with the team to celebrate. Home by 9. Love you. I stared at that message. The casualness of it. The normalcy. Like he wasn't systematically draining our accounts. Like someone who looked exactly like him wasn't on a romantic trip to Monaco. I texted back, "That's wonderful. So proud of you. Have fun." Then I kept digging. I accessed our business accounts, Stackhouse and Fairmont Consulting. Henry had given me view-only access years ago, saying it was, for transparency. I'd never had a reason to look closely. Until now. The company had 3 accounts. Operating, payroll, and a client trust account where they held money for ongoing projects. The client trust account should have had roughly $800,000. Client retainers, project deposits, funds held for work in progress. Current balance, $124,000. Someone had been siphoning money from the business too. I pulled up the transaction history. Small transfers, always under $10,000, always to different accounts. Shell companies with generic names. Meridian Holdings LLC. Apex Strategic Consulting. Summit Advisory Group. I ran searches on each company name. All registered in Delaware, a state famous for lenient corporate transparency laws. All created within the past 2 years. All had the same registered agent. Every single one was a ghost. No websites. No employees. No actual business operations. Just vehicles for moving money. I heard the garage door open. My heart stopped. Henry wasn't supposed to be home until 9. It was only 6:30. I slammed my laptop shut and stood up, my mind racing. Act normal. Don't let him know. But it wasn't Henry who walked through the door. It was Rose, carrying 2 large equipment cases and followed by a man I'd never seen before. "Blaire, this is Marcus Chen. He specializes in forensic audio analysis and surveillance countermeasures." Marcus nodded at me, his expression serious. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with sharp eyes that immediately started scanning the room. "Miss Stackhouse, we need to sweep your house for listening devices," he said. "If someone is impersonating your husband, they're likely monitoring you to maintain the deception." Listening devices? In my house? Standard protocol for this type of operation, Rose said. They need to know your routines, your conversations, anything that might trip up the imposter. Marcus was already pulling equipment from his case. "This won't take long. But I need you both to stay quiet while I work." For the next 20 minutes, I watched him move through my house with what looked like a handheld scanner. He checked picture frames, lamps, smoke detectors, electrical outlets. In the living room, he paused. Unscrewed the cover of a wall outlet near the couch. He pulled out a small device, no bigger than a USB drive. "Audio bug," he said quietly. "Commercial grade. Pretty expensive actually. Transmits to a receiver somewhere within a quarter mile." My hands went numb. Someone's been listening to me? In my own house? He found 3 more. One in the bedroom, hidden in the alarm clock on Henry's nightstand. One in the kitchen, tucked behind the coffee maker. One in my home office, inside the desk lamp. Marcus placed each device carefully into a shielded bag. High-end equipment. Probably cost $800 each. Whoever placed them had professional training. Rose's jaw was tight. Or hired someone who did. "Can you trace them?" I asked. "We can try. But first," Marcus pulled out another device. "I'm creating an audio-only jammer. It'll block sound transmission from this house. Text communications will still work normally. We don't want to alert Henry that we're onto him yet." But if someone's been listening, they'll know the audio feed just went dark. Rose turned to me. Show me what you found. The financial records. I pulled up my laptop and walked her through everything. The European charges. The jewelry purchases. The wire transfers. The missing savings. The drained business accounts. Rose's expression grew darker with each revelation. Total damage, she asked. I pulled up my summary spreadsheet. From our personal accounts, $601,400. From the business, approximately $676,000. Total across all victims, $1.277 million. Rose let out a low whistle. That's not impulse spending. That's systematic asset extraction. He's been planning this for years. Planning what? An exit. Henry's been building a new life somewhere else. New identity, new relationship, new money. When he's ready, he disappears completely. Files for divorce remotely, takes whatever's left, and you're left with nothing. My voice came out small. But why the imposter? Why not just leave? Because he needs time. Time to transfer assets without triggering alarms. Time to establish himself wherever he's going. The imposter keeps you placated, keeps up appearances, makes sure no one suspects anything until it's too late. Rose pulled up something on her own laptop. I need access to Henry's computer. The one in his office. He keeps it password protected. I'm not surprised. She pulled a small USB drive from her pocket. This will bypass it. But Blaire, once we do this, we're crossing a legal line. Anything we find might not be admissible in court. I don't care about court right now. I care about the truth. Rose nodded. Then let's find it. Rose's USB drive bypassed Henry's password in less than 30 seconds. The desktop loaded, revealing a meticulously organized system of folders. Too organized. Like someone had been very careful about what was visible and what wasn't. Look for anything hidden, Rose instructed, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Encrypted folders, files with misleading names, anything that seems out of place. Marcus was setting up recording equipment, documenting everything we were doing. For your protection, he explained. If this goes to trial, we need proof of how we obtained evidence. Rose navigated to Henry's documents folder, then stopped. There. See that? A folder labeled Tax Returns 2019 to 2023. Completely innocuous. What about it? I asked. The file size. Tax returns are usually a few hundred kilobytes. This folder is 2.4 gigabytes. She opened it. Inside weren't tax returns at all, but hundreds of documents with coded file names. PDFs, spreadsheets, images, video files. Rose opened the first PDF. A contract. My breath caught as I read the header. Performance agreement, confidential. This agreement is entered into between Henry Stackhouse, client, and Jack Monteith, performer, for the purpose of identity assumption and behavioral replication services. Term, minimum 90 days, with option to extend. Compensation, $50,000 initial payment, $15,000 monthly retainer, performance bonuses as outlined in Section 7. Scope, performer will assume the identity of client in domestic settings, maintaining behavioral consistency with provided documentation and training materials. Oh my God, I whispered. He hired an actor. That's who's been living in my house. Rose kept scrolling. The contract was 12 pages long, laying out everything in clinical detail. Jack Monteith would undergo training to replicate Henry's mannerisms, speech patterns, preferences. He'd been provided with a comprehensive dossier about me. Look at the date, Rose said. This was signed 8 weeks ago. 8 weeks. 2 months. Right when the facial recognition software showed the change. The next document made me feel sick. Subject profile, Blaire Stackhouse. A 53-page document about me. My life reduced to stage directions for a stranger. Morning routine, wake 6:30 to 7 a.m. Makes coffee first, oat milk, 1 sugar. Feeds dog before showering. Prefers silence in morning, avoid excessive conversation. Emotional triggers, father's death, March 2022, highly sensitive, avoid unless she initiates. Work stress, responds well to validation. Mentions of children, complicated, she wants them but has been putting it off. Intimacy patterns, typically initiates on weekends. Prefers bedroom with lights dimmed. Avoids intimacy during high-stress work periods. Responsive to neck and shoulder attention. Every private moment catalogued and handed to a stranger like a training manual. There's more, Rose said quietly, opening a folder labeled Communications, Do. Dorothy. Email after email between Henry and Dorothy Jameson, dating back 14 months. From Henry to Dorothy, date February 3rd. Darling, everything's falling into place faster than expected. Jack is worth every penny, even I'm impressed. Blaire hasn't noticed a thing. She's so buried in her work, so trusting, she barely looks up anymore. The Monaco property closes next month. I've transferred another $95,000 to the Cayman account. By summer, we'll have everything we need. Just a few more months, and we start our real life together. I can't wait to wake up next to you every morning without pretending it's temporary. You're the only one who's ever really understood me. My hands clenched. I forced myself to keep reading. From Dorothy to Henry, date February 5th. My love, I trust your judgment completely. Though I worry sometimes, what if she discovers the truth before we're ready? What if Jack makes a mistake? I've been looking at wedding venues in Monaco. There's a stunning chateau overlooking the Mediterranean. Intimate ceremonies, maximum 50 guests. I know we can't make concrete plans yet, but I can't help dreaming. The apartment here is beautiful, but empty without you. Hurry back to me. Wedding venues. She was planning a wedding to my husband. Rose opened another folder, financial planning. Detailed spreadsheets showing exactly how Henry had been moving money. Not just our personal accounts, but investments he'd made in my name without my knowledge, even a home equity line of credit on our house, $200,000 that I'd never seen. All of it carefully funneled offshore. But there was another document that made everything click. Divorce settlement proposal, draft. A pre-written divorce agreement, filed remotely through an online service in Nevada. It claimed we'd been separated for 6 months, divided assets leaving me with almost nothing, and could be finalized without my physical presence through digital signature. Henry planned to forge my signature. The document included a notation, Jack to obtain signature sample from household documents. He was going to divorce you without you even knowing, Rose said. By the time you figured it out, the money would be gone, the divorce final, and he'd be in Monaco with a new wife. Marcus had been photographing every document. Miss Stackhouse, this is evidence of fraud on a massive scale. Identity theft, forgery, embezzlement. There's a video file, Rose interrupted. Labeled, Training Session 3. She clicked it. The video showed Henry sitting across from another man, Jack Monteith, presumably. Jack looked similar to Henry but not identical. Yet. The scar above your eyebrow, Jack was saying. How did you get it? Skiing accident, junior year at Cornell, Henry replied. Crashed into a tree trying to impress a girl. 7 stitches. Blaire asks about it sometimes because she thinks it's sexy. Jack made notes. And your coffee preference changed 2 years ago? Right. I used to drink it black, but Blaire started making it with oat milk and I developed a taste for it. I never told her, but I actually prefer almond milk. Don't let that slip. They were rehearsing my marriage. Practicing being Henry. The video continued for 40 minutes. Henry coaching Jack on everything, how to hold a fork, how to answer my questions, even how to replicate his slight limp from the old ACL injury. I had minor surgery to correct the limp 2 years ago, Henry said on the video. But I never told Blaire because I knew she'd ask why I didn't do it earlier. So when you're at home, you need to fake the limp. Just a slight favor of the left leg. She's used to it. Rose paused the video. We sat in silence. There's one more folder, she said. Medical records. Documents from a cosmetic surgery clinic in Seoul, South Korea. Asterisk patient, Jack Monteith procedure, facial reconstruction to match reference subject cost, $240,000 procedures, rhinoplasty, cheek augmentation, chin reshaping, scar replication, dental veneers. Before and after photos. Jack Monteith had undergone extensive surgery to look like Henry. Not perfectly identical, that was impossible, but close enough that someone who trusted their husband wouldn't look too closely. Close enough to fool me for 8 weeks. Blaire, Rose said gently, we need to call the police. This is beyond what we can handle privately. No. My voice came out stronger than expected. Not yet. What do you mean? I stared at the screen, at the evidence of Henry's betrayal laid out in meticulous detail. He'd planned this for over a year. Spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hired an actor, paid for surgery, monitored my life, drained our accounts. He thought I was too trusting, too buried in my work, too naive to ever figure it out. He'd underestimated me completely. I mean, we're not just handing this to the police and letting them handle it, I said. I want Henry to know I figured it out. I want him to watch everything he built collapse. And I know exactly how to make that happen. Rose looked at me with something like respect. What are you thinking? Henry thinks he's so smart. He thinks Jack's performance is flawless. Let's use that against him. Let's give him exactly what he wants, and then take everything away. Jack Monteith walked through our front door at 8:47 p.m., carrying his briefcase and wearing Henry's face. He looked tired but satisfied, exactly how Henry would look after closing a major deal. Hey, honey, he called out, his voice a perfect replica. Sorry I'm late. The celebration went longer than expected. I was sitting on the couch with a glass of wine, Rose and Marcus hidden upstairs with recording equipment. We'd rehearsed this moment 3 times. That's okay, I said, keeping my voice light. How were the drinks? Great. Jonathan was there, actually. He flew back early from Seattle. I took a sip of wine. Jonathan was still in Seattle. Emily had texted me an update an hour ago. Another lie. Another test failed. Jack, I said quietly. We need to talk. He froze. Just for a second. What did you call me? Jack Monteith. That's your real name, isn't it? Originally from Los Angeles. Struggled actor for 12 years. Regional theater, a few commercials, mostly waiter jobs. Until Henry offered you $50,000 and a monthly retainer to become him. The color drained from his face. He dropped the briefcase. I don't know what you're. I know about the surgery in Seoul. I know about the training videos. I know about the listening devices you planted in my house. I know everything, Jack. He stood there, and I watched his performance crumble. His shoulders dropped. His posture changed. Even his face seemed different somehow, like he'd been wearing a mask that had finally slipped. How long have you known? The exhaustion in his voice made his real accent slip through, softer, with that California lilt he'd been suppressing for 2 months. Long enough. Sit down. He sat, looking smaller somehow. Defeated. I didn't want to hurt you, he said quietly. You have to believe that. Henry told me you two were separated. That you were making the divorce difficult. That he needed someone to maintain appearances for a few months while the legal stuff got sorted out. And you believed him? I wanted to believe him. Do you know what it's like to spend 12 years chasing a dream and watching it die slowly? I was 38 years old, still auditioning for commercials I'd never book, still waiting tables in Studio City. His voice cracked. Then this man approaches me at a coffee shop. Says he represents a boutique firm that provides lifestyle consulting services. Says I have the right look for a special project. So you said yes. He offered me more money than I'd made in the previous 5 years combined. Said it would be 3 months, maybe 4. Just play a role. Be convincing. Go home every night to a woman who wouldn't look too closely. The words stung, but I kept my voice steady. When did you realize it wasn't what Henry told you? Jack ran his hands through his hair, a gesture nothing like Henry's. About 2 weeks in. I found papers in his office that didn't match his story. References to offshore accounts. An email about Monaco property. But by then, I'd already had the surgery. I'd already taken the money. I was in too deep. You could have told me. And say what? Hi, I'm an actor your husband hired to replace him while he steals your money? You would have called the police immediately. I would have gone to prison. He wasn't wrong. Where is he right now? The real Henry? Monaco. He's been there for 6 weeks. Wednesday morning, we switched places temporarily. I said you left early for errands. He stayed at a hotel, did the Meridian presentation because it was too important to risk, then we switched back that night before you got home. My stomach turned. Henry had been in the same city as me, and I hadn't even known. The woman, I said. Dorothy. How long have they been together? 2 years, from what I gathered. He met her at some conference in London. She's got family money, old money. They bought a villa in Monaco last year. They're planning to get married as soon as your divorce finalizes. Rose's voice came from the stairs. Which was going to happen how? Jack jumped, seeing her for the first time. Who are you? Private investigator. And you're going to answer every question we have if you want any chance of staying out of federal prison. Jack's face went pale. I didn't know it was fraud. I swear. Save it, Rose cut him off. Here's what's going to happen. You cooperate fully. Tell us everything Henry told you to do. Every instruction, every detail, every communication. And in exchange, I'll talk to the prosecutor about you being a victim too. And if I don't? Marcus emerged from upstairs, holding up a tablet showing paused video footage. Then we hand this to the FBI right now, and you face conspiracy charges, identity fraud, wire fraud, and about 6 other felonies that'll put you away for 20 years. Jack's hands were shaking. What do you need me to do? I leaned forward. First, you're going to tell me everything. The whole plan. What Henry's doing in Monaco, when he's coming back, how he was planning to end this. And then? Then you're going to help me destroy him. I pulled out my phone and showed him the spreadsheet, every account, every transfer, every stolen dollar. Henry thinks he's been so clever. He thinks he's covered his tracks. But he made one critical mistake. What's that? He underestimated me. He thought I was too trusting, too buried in my work, too naive to ever figure out what he was doing. And now we're going to use his arrogance against him. Jack looked at the spreadsheet, his eyes widening. That's over $1 million. $1.277 million, to be exact. Plus another $400,000 from the business that his partner Jonathan doesn't even know about yet. I met his eyes. Henry's been texting you, hasn't he? Checking in. Making sure the performance is holding up. Every few days. Perfect. Here's what you're going to text him tonight. I pulled up a prepared message on my laptop. You're going to tell him I found a discrepancy in our tax returns. Nothing serious, just something that needs both our signatures to file an amendment. You'll tell him I've been talking about how this could actually result in a significant refund if we claim it correctly. Why would he care about that? Rose smiled coldly. Because Henry can't resist money. Even small amounts. It's his weakness. And we're going to exploit that to bring him right into our trap. I pulled up another document, something I'd spent the last hour creating with Rose's help. It looked like an official IRS tax amendment form, complete with authentic letterhead and case numbers. This form has embedded code, Marcus explained. When Henry opens it from Monaco and enters his credentials to sign it digitally, everything triggers at once. His offshore accounts freeze, the FBI gets alerted automatically, Interpol receives evidence packages. He won't know what hit him. But won't he realize something's wrong when his accounts freeze? Jack asked. Jack stared at us. You're setting him up. No, I corrected. We're letting him walk into a trap of his own making. All you have to do is send the message. Tell him everything's fine. Tell him I suspect nothing. Tell him his plan is working perfectly. And if I do this, you'll really talk to the prosecutor? Rose nodded. You were manipulated. You're a victim too, even if you made terrible choices. Cooperate fully, testify if needed, and I'll make sure they know you helped bring down a major fraud operation. Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, the special phone Henry had given him for their communications. What should I say? I handed him my laptop with the pre-written message. Exactly this. Word for word. He read it, then typed. Update, be found tax discrepancy from 2022. Nothing suspicious, just needs both signatures for amendment. She's excited, thinks it might mean a $15,000 refund. Sending you the form tomorrow to sign digitally. Everything else running smoothly. She suspects nothing. Performance maintaining perfect accuracy. He showed it to me. I nodded. He hit send. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Henry was typing. Excellent work. This is exactly the kind of thing that keeps her distracted. Send the form as soon as you have it. I'll sign and return it within 24 hours. Keep the performance going, we're almost there. I read Henry's response 3 times. The casual manipulation. The confidence. The complete certainty that his plan was working. He has no idea, Jack whispered. No, I agreed. He doesn't. And that's exactly how we're going to catch him. 22 hours later, I sat in my home office with Rose and Marcus, all of us staring at a laptop screen showing real-time surveillance feeds. Jack had sent the tax amendment form to Henry at 9 a.m. Now it was 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. in Monaco, and we were waiting. He always checks emails first thing, Jack had told us. He's obsessive about staying on top of communications. The surveillance software Marcus had embedded gave us access to Henry's laptop camera the moment he opened the file. Legally questionable, Rose had been very clear, but I was past caring. At 7:14 p.m. Chicago time, the screen flickered to life. There was Henry. The real Henry. Sitting at a desk in what looked like an obscenely expensive apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows behind him showed the Monaco coastline, the Mediterranean glittering in morning sun. He wore a white linen shirt, his hair slightly longer than he used to keep it. He looked relaxed. Happy. Like a man who thought he was getting away with everything. That's the apartment, Jack said quietly. Avenue Princess Grace. $3.2 million. He bought it 4 months ago. With my money, I thought. On screen, Henry opened the email. I watched his eyes scan the message Jack had sent. Watched a small smile cross his face. He's buying it, Rose murmured. Henry clicked on the attached PDF. The form loaded, official looking, complete with IRS letterhead and case numbers that would check out if verified. Marcus's fingers flew across his keyboard. Malware deploying. 3, 2, we're in. A second window opened, showing Henry's file system. Marcus navigated quickly, pulling folders, documents, communications. Years of data here, he whispered. Henry was reading through the form now, his expression focused. Professional. This was the Henry I'd known, meticulous, detail-oriented, always checking everything twice. He pulled up a calculator, started running numbers. Even in the act of signing a fraudulent document, he was verifying the math. "He's going to sign it," I said. "He can't help himself. The possibility of more money, he can't resist." Rose had her phone out, ready. The moment he enters his credentials, every law enforcement agency on our list gets pinged. FBI, Interpol, Monaco Police, IRS Criminal Investigation. On screen, Henry reached for his phone. Made a call. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I could read his lips. "Calling his lawyer," Jack said. "He does that before signing important documents." We waited. Henry talked for 3 minutes, nodding, occasionally glancing at the form. Then he ended the call and turned back to the computer. He clicked on the signature field. A window popped up requesting credentials, bank account information to verify identity. Henry didn't hesitate. He pulled up his password manager and started entering information. Bank accounts. Routing numbers. The Cayman Islands account credentials. "He's doing it," Marcus said. The moment Henry hit submit, our system exploded with activity. Marcus's screen lit up with alerts. Accounts freezing. Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Luxembourg. All locked down. Rose was on her phone. FBI has the evidence package. Interpol is routing to Monaco law enforcement. On Henry's camera feed, I watched his screen change. The tax form disappeared, replaced by a red warning. Account security: hold your financial accounts have been flagged for suspicious activity and are temporarily frozen pending investigation. Contact your financial institution immediately. Henry's face went white. He clicked frantically, trying to access accounts directly. Each one showed the same message. He grabbed his phone, started making calls. I could see the panic building, the way his hand shook as he dialed, the way he kept running his other hand through his hair. "First call is to his Cayman bank," Jack said. "He's going to find out the freeze is real." We watched Henry talk, his expression shifting from confusion to concern to dawning horror. He ended that call and immediately made another. Then another. "Calling Dorothy," Jack said. "Warning her something's wrong." Marcus pulled up another feed. Tracking his location via laptop GPS, sending coordinates to Monaco Police now. Rose checked her phone. Monaco Police dispatching units. ETA 12 minutes. On screen, Henry had stopped making calls. He stared at his computer, face pale. Then, suddenly, he moved with purpose. Grabbed a bag from off camera, started throwing things into it. "He's running," I said. "He can't," Rose replied. "We've sent his passport information to border control. He's flagged at every exit, airport, train station, marina. Even if he tries to leave by car, he'll be stopped at the Italian or French borders." But Henry was trying anyway. He grabbed his laptop, shoved it in the bag, and rushed out of frame. The camera showed an empty apartment, expensive furniture, and that stunning Mediterranean view Henry had bought with stolen money. "Police are 3 minutes out," Marcus said. My phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I answered on speaker. "Miss Stackhouse?" A woman's voice, professional, American accent. "This is Special Agent Rebecca Torres, FBI International Fraud Division. I've just received a rather extensive evidence package regarding your husband." "Yes," I said. "I sent it. I need to confirm, are you currently in contact with the subject?" "No, but we have visual surveillance of his location in Monaco. He's attempting to flee right now. Monaco police are en route. We've coordinated with Interpol." "Miss Stackhouse, the evidence you've provided is comprehensive. We're looking at wire fraud, money laundering, identity theft, embezzlement, and potentially a dozen other federal violations. How long until they reach him?" "According to my contact, they're pulling up to the building now." Marcus switched feeds, pulling up a traffic camera near Henry's building. 2 Monaco police cars, lights flashing, parked in front of an elegant building. We watched officers enter. Third floor, Agent Torres said. I could hear typing. The apartment is registered to a shell company owned by Dorothy Jameson and Henry Stackhouse. Miss Stackhouse, are you aware your husband has been cohabitating with another woman? Yes, I said. I'm aware of everything. 4 minutes passed. 4 minutes of staring at an empty apartment on Henry's laptop camera, knowing police were in the building. Then the apartment door burst open. Monaco police officers flooded in, weapons drawn, shouting commands in French and English. And there was Henry, frozen in the middle of the room, his bag half-packed, his face showing the exact moment he realized it was over. An officer approached, speaking in accented English. Mr. Henry Stackhouse, you are under arrest for financial fraud and money laundering. You have the right to remain silent. Henry's eyes went to his laptop, still open on the desk. Still transmitting. For just a second, his gaze seemed to meet mine through the camera. He knew. He knew I'd done this. Did he just try to run? Rose asked as 2 officers grabbed Henry's arms. On screen, Henry jerked away, actually tried to bolt for the door. He made it 3 steps before they tackled him. The laptop camera showed a confusing jumble, Henry struggling, officers restraining him, someone shouting in French. When the image stabilized, Henry was on the floor, hands cuffed behind his back, his face pressed against expensive marble tile. Subject is in custody, Agent Torres said. Miss Stackhouse, you're going to need to come in for a formal statement. This will be a complex prosecution. I have 8 weeks of documented evidence, I said. Financial records, communications, video testimony from an accomplice. Everything you need. The accomplice being the man hired to impersonate your husband? Jack Monteith. He's here now, fully cooperating. We'll need to speak with him as well. Miss Stackhouse, one more thing, we need to locate Dorothy Jameson. Do you have information about her whereabouts? Rose was already typing. Found her. Still in Monaco. Different address, Hotel de Paris. Penthouse suite. Sending that information to Monaco police now, Agent Torres said. They'll pick her up within the hour. On screen, officers were hauling Henry to his feet. He wasn't struggling anymore. He looked defeated, shocked, like he couldn't process what was happening. The last thing I saw before they shut down his laptop was Henry's face as they led him out of the apartment he'd bought with my money, toward a future he'd never planned for. A future in prison. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Instead, I spent the hours planning something Henry would never see coming. By 6 a.m., I'd sent carefully worded text messages to 23 people. Henry's business partner Jonathan. His mother, Eva Stackhouse. His younger sister, Emily. Every member of the Stackhouse and Fairmont leadership team. Their major clients. The message was simple: emergency meeting regarding Henry Stackhouse. Friday 9 a.m. at my residence. Your immediate attendance is critical. This concerns your financial interests. Vague enough to create alarm. Specific enough to ensure they'd come. Rose thought I was crazy. Blaire, you don't need to do this. The FBI has him. He's going to prison. Isn't that enough? No, I said simply. Henry spent over a year systematically destroying my life while maintaining a perfect facade. Everyone thought we were fine. Everyone thought he was successful, trustworthy, a good husband. I want them to know the truth. All of them. At the same time. By Thursday evening, I'd received confirmation from everyone. They were coming. Friday morning, Jack helped me set up the living room. Chairs arranged in rows facing the TV. Coffee and pastries on the dining table, a touch of normalcy before I detonated their world. Are you sure about this? Jack asked, looking nervous. I've never been more sure of anything. At 8:55 a.m., the doorbell started ringing. Jonathan Fairmont arrived first, looking stressed. Blaire, what's this about? I've got a client meeting at 10. Trust me, you'll want to cancel it. Eva Stackhouse came next, an elegant woman in her late 60s who'd never particularly liked me. She'd made it clear from the beginning that I wasn't sophisticated enough for her son. "This better be important," she said, barely greeting me. "Oh, it's important." Emily, Henry's sister, arrived with her husband, looking concerned. "Blaire, is Henry okay? Your message scared me." "Have a seat, Emily. Everything will make sense soon." The business partners filed in, David Shen, Robert Palmer, Thomas Novak. They stood clustered together, talking in low voices. The clients came last. Christina Aldridge, tech startup founder. Marcus Webb, real estate developer. Sarah Kim, whose family trust had hired the firm. By 9:15, everyone was seated. 23 people in my living room, drinking coffee, shooting confused glances at each other. I stood at the front of the room. Rose stood by the door, blocking the exit. Jack sat in the corner, anxious. "Thank you all for coming," I said. "I know this is unusual. But what I'm about to tell you will affect each of you personally." Eva made an impatient sound. "Blaire, please just tell us what this is about." "It's about Henry. And the fact that he's currently in custody in Monaco, arrested for fraud, money laundering, and embezzlement." The room erupted. "What? That's impossible. Blaire, this isn't funny." I held up my hand. "I'm going to show you something. Please hold your questions." I turned on the TV. The screen showed a frozen image, Henry being led out of his Monaco apartment in handcuffs. This footage is from yesterday morning. Monaco police arrested Henry at an apartment he purchased using money stolen from our joint accounts and from your company. Jonathan stood up. "Blaire, Henry was at the office Wednesday. He gave the Meridian presentation. I was there." "You were." "That was the Real Henry, he flew in specifically for that meeting. But the man who's been going home to me every night for the past 8 weeks? That wasn't Henry." I gestured to Jack. "Stand up, please." Jack stood slowly, face pale. Eva gasped. Several people leaned forward, squinting. "This is Jack Monteith. He's an actor from Los Angeles. Henry paid him $50,000 plus monthly payments to impersonate him. Jack underwent extensive cosmetic surgery in South Korea to look like Henry. He's been living in my house, sleeping in my bed, maintaining the illusion that everything was normal." "That's insane," David Chen said. "Why would Henry?" "Because he's been building a new life in Monaco with his girlfriend of 2 years, Dorothy Jameson. And to do that successfully, he needed to drain every account he could access without anyone noticing." I pulled up a spreadsheet on the TV. "Here's what Henry stole from our personal accounts, $601,400. Eva's hand flew to her mouth. "But that's not all. Jonathan, when was the last time you reviewed the client trust account?" Jonathan's face went pale. "We review it quarterly. Last review was 6 weeks ago. Everything was fine. Check it now." Jonathan pulled out his phone, fingers shaking as he logged in. I watched the color drain from his face. The room exploded. The business partners were all on their phones, pulling up accounts. "He stole from the company?" Thomas Novak's voice shook. "From our clients?" "Yes." "Christina, your company hired the firm for series of funding strategy, correct?" Christina nodded, face tight. "Henry had access to your financial projections. He used that to make personal investments, buying stock in your competitors before product announcements." "That's insider trading," Christina said flatly. "Yes. The FBI is investigating." I turned to Marcus Webb. "Your real estate trust, the one worth $4.3 million? What about it?" "Henry moved $230,000 to an offshore account in the Caymans. It's frozen now, but it was gone." Marcus stood so fast his chair tipped over. "He stole from my family trust?" Sarah Kim was crying silently. "My mother's estate planning. He had access to everything. How much? $180,000. I'm sorry, Sarah. The room descended into chaos. Everyone talking at once, phones ringing as they called lawyers, accountants. Eva sat perfectly still, face ashen. My son did this? Your son did this, I confirmed. He's been planning it for at least 2 years. He met Dorothy at a conference in London. They bought property in Monaco. They were planning to get married as soon as our divorce was finalized, a divorce I never knew was happening. Where is he now? Emily asked, tears streaming. Monaco police custody. He'll be extradited to the US to face federal charges. Wire fraud, money laundering, embezzlement, identity theft. The FBI estimates he could face 25 years. Jonathan was on his phone with a lawyer. When he hung up, he looked desperate. Blaire, the company. Our reputation. When this gets out. It's already out, Rose said from the doorway, holding up her phone. The Monaco arrest made international news this morning. American businessman arrested in luxury fraud scheme. It's trending. I pulled it up on the TV. The headline, accompanied by the photo of Henry in handcuffs. Eva made a choking sound. Everyone will know. The club, the foundation board. Yes, I said simply. Everyone will know that Henry Stackhouse is a fraud and a thief. David stood, face red. We need damage control. Immediate damage control. The FBI is handling client notifications, I interrupted. They'll be reaching out to everyone who's a potential victim. I suggest you cooperate fully. This will destroy the company, Robert Palmer said quietly. Henry destroyed it, I corrected. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth. Jonathan looked at me, eyes hollow. Did you know? Before all this? I found out 8 days ago. My best friend saw Henry on a flight to Monaco with Dorothy. That's when I started investigating. And you didn't warn us? I was building a case. I needed evidence. I needed to make sure Henry couldn't talk his way out of it. I met Jonathan's eyes. He's been stealing from your company for 18 months. Did you ever suspect? Jonathan's silence was answer enough. My phone buzzed. Agent Torres, Dorothy Jameson arrested this morning. She's cooperating, providing testimony against Henry in exchange for reduced charges. I read it aloud. His girlfriend is testifying against him? Emily whispered. She's facing prison time too. People make choices when their freedom is on the line. Eva stood abruptly. I need to leave. I need to call my lawyer. Of course, I said. But Eva, before you go, for 9 years, you treated me like I wasn't good enough for your son. You criticized my career, my background, my choices. You made me feel small at every family gathering. Her eyes met mine, defiant. Your son wasn't good enough for me, I said quietly. And now everyone knows it. She left without another word, her composure finally cracking. One by one, they all left. Some in shock. Some in rage. Some just broken. Jack was the last. What happens to me now? Agent Torres wants your full testimony. Do that, and you'll probably get probation. Don't, and you're going down as an accomplice. He nodded. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. You didn't deserve any of this. No, I agreed. I didn't. When everyone was gone, I stood alone in my living room, surrounded by empty coffee cups and the wreckage of Henry's lies. Rose put a hand on my shoulder. How do you feel? I thought about it. Hollow. But also, free. Henry's extradition took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of legal maneuvering, of his expensive Monaco lawyers trying to fight the transfer. But in the end, it didn't matter. The evidence was overwhelming. I watched the news coverage of him arriving at JFK in handcuffs, flanked by U.S. Marshals. He looked smaller somehow. The tan he'd gotten in Monaco had faded. His expensive clothes had been replaced with an orange jumpsuit. Good. The arraignment was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in federal court in Manhattan. I didn't have to be there, but I wanted to be. I needed to be. Rose came with me. So did Jonathan, representing the business. And Sofia, my best friend who'd started all this with one impossible phone call. You okay? Sofia asked as we climbed the courthouse steps. I will be, I said. After today. The courtroom was packed. Media filled the back rows. I recognized some of Henry's other victims, clients who'd been defrauded, business associates who'd been betrayed. Eva sat in the front row on the opposite side, face hidden behind dark sunglasses. Then they brought Henry in. Our eyes met across the courtroom. I'd been married to this man for 9 years. I'd shared a bed with him, built a life with him, trusted him completely. I didn't recognize the person staring back at me. He looked away first. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Margaret Brennan, read the charges. There were 27 of them. Wire fraud. Money laundering. Identity theft. Embezzlement. Bank fraud. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Interstate transportation of stolen property. Each charge carried years of potential prison time. Henry's lawyer stood to enter a plea. Not guilty, Your Honor. I almost laughed. The evidence against Henry could fill a warehouse. The idea that he could claim innocence was absurd. But this was just theater. A formality before the inevitable. Judge Brennan set bail at $2 million. Henry's lawyers argued it was excessive. The prosecutor argued that Henry was a flight risk who'd already demonstrated a pattern of deception and international movement. The judge sided with the prosecution. Bail at $2 million, cash only, with ankle monitoring and surrender of all passports. Eva stood. I'll post it. He's my son. Judge Brennan looked at her over her reading glasses. Mrs. Stackhouse, are you aware that your son is also under investigation for fraudulently accessing your trust fund? Eva's face went white. What? Your son has power of attorney for your medical trust. Our investigation has uncovered $340,000 in unauthorized withdrawals over the past 14 months. I watched Eva sink back into her seat, her hand clutching her chest. The judge denied bail entirely. Henry would remain in federal custody until trial. As they led him away, Henry turned back one more time. He didn't look at his mother or his sister. He looked at me. I held his gaze steadily, letting him see everything I felt. The betrayal. The anger. The complete absence of the love I'd once had for him. Then he was gone, and I could finally breathe. The trial began 4 months later. 4 months of preparation, of meeting with prosecutors, of reviewing thousands of pages of evidence. Patricia Hammond, the prosecutor, had built a case so airtight that even Henry's expensive legal team knew they were fighting a losing battle. My testimony was scheduled for day 4. I wore my best suit, the navy one I saved for important presentations. Professional armor. I walked into that courtroom with my head high, and when I was sworn in, my hand didn't shake. Patricia walked me through everything methodically. Sofia's phone call. The investigation. The discovery of Jack. The financial forensics. The offshore accounts. Miss Stackhouse, Patricia said, can you tell the court the total amount your husband stole from your joint accounts? $601,400. And from his business? Approximately $696,000 from client trust accounts and operating funds. And from other victims? I pulled out the spreadsheet I'd built. From his mother's trust, $340,000. From client accounts he had access to, another $823,000. Total damage, $2.46 million. A murmur went through the courtroom. During the 8 weeks that Mr. Jack Monteith was impersonating your husband, did you have any suspicions? small things felt off. But I trusted my husband. I had no reason to believe the person in my house wasn't him. When did you discover the truth? When my best friend, who's a flight attendant, saw a man who looked exactly like Henry on a flight to Monaco with another woman. That's when I started investigating. Patricia nodded. And what did you find? I walked the jury through everything. The duplicate passports. The shadow credit card charges. The wire transfers structured to avoid detection. The shell companies. The Monaco apartment. Dorothy Jameson. The plan to divorce me remotely using a forged signature. Henry's lawyer tried to discredit me on cross-examination. He painted me as vindictive, scorned, a woman who'd manufactured evidence out of spite. Isn't it true, Miss Stackhouse, that your marriage was troubled? That you'd grown apart? Our marriage was fine until I discovered he'd hired an actor to replace himself. But you were busy with work, weren't you? Often distracted? Perhaps not as attentive as you should have been? I was attentive enough to notice when someone stole $2.46 million. A few people in the gallery laughed. The judge called for order. The lawyer tried several more angles, but I'd spent 4 months preparing. Every attack was deflected with documentation, with timestamps, with evidence that couldn't be explained away. When I finally stepped down, I felt drained but intact. Then Dorothy took the stand. I hadn't seen her since the photos Sofia sent. In person, she looked diminished, prison orange instead of designer clothes, blonde hair pulled back simply, no makeup, no jewelry. She avoided looking at me as she was sworn in. Patricia was gentler with her. Dorothy had agreed to cooperate, to testify against Henry in exchange for a reduced sentence. Ms. Jameson, how did you meet the defendant? At a conference in London. 2 years ago. He approached me at the hotel bar. He was charming, attentive. He said he was separated from his wife, that the divorce was just a formality. What did he tell you about his wife? Dorothy's voice was small. That she was difficult. That she refused to sign papers. That she was trying to take everything just to punish him for leaving. Did you believe him? Yes. Dorothy's voice cracked. I believed everything he said. Patricia walked her through the rest. The romantic trips. The Monaco apartment. The plan to get married. Henry's promises of a new life together, once he'd protected his assets from his vindictive wife. Did you know the money he was spending on you was stolen? No. I thought he was wealthy. He showed me bank statements, investment accounts. I had no idea it was coming from his wife's savings or his clients' accounts. When did you learn the truth? When Monaco police arrested us. They told me Henry was married. That he'd hired someone to impersonate him. That the money was stolen. I couldn't believe it. I watched Henry's face during Dorothy's testimony. He looked betrayed, actually betrayed, that she'd turned on him. Ms. Jameson, did you love the defendant? Dorothy started crying. Real tears. I thought I did. I gave up everything for him. My job, my apartment, my relationship with my family. He promised we'd start fresh together. I thought, her voice broke. I thought he loved me. But he hadn't. Henry hadn't loved her any more than he'd loved me. He'd loved money, freedom, the thrill of getting away with something. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. I sat in the hallway with Sofia and Rose, all of us silent. When the jury finally filed back in, I tried to read their faces. They were carefully neutral. The foreman stood. A woman in her 50s, a high school teacher. On count 1, wire fraud, how do you find? Guilty. On count 2, money laundering, how do you find? Guilty. 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 27 counts. 27 guilty verdicts. Henry's face went blank. Complete shock. Eva sobbed openly. Emily held her mother, tears streaming down her own face. Judge Brennan announced sentencing would be in 2 weeks. As marshals moved forward to take Henry back into custody, he turned to look at me one last time. I felt nothing. No triumph. No satisfaction. Just hollow relief that it was finally over. The sentencing hearing was on a cold morning in February, 8 months after Sofia's phone call had shattered my world. Judge Brennan gave Henry 15 minutes to make a statement before she pronounced sentence. I watched him stand, hands clasped, and wondered if he'd finally take responsibility. Your Honor, he began, voice shaking, I want to explain the circumstances that led to these regrettable decisions. The pressure I was under, both professionally and personally, created a situation where my judgment became impaired. I made mistakes, serious mistakes, but they came from a place of desperation, not malice. I stopped listening. He was doing it again. Reframing. Deflecting. Making himself the victim. He talked for 12 minutes. He mentioned poor judgment 6 times. He referenced difficult circumstances, and mistakes, and situations that spiraled. He talked about his accomplishments, his previous good character, his family legacy. He never once apologized to me. Never looked in my direction. Never took actual responsibility. When he finished, Judge Brennan's expression hadn't changed. Mr. Stackhouse, she said, voice cutting through the courtroom, I've presided over financial fraud cases for 21 years. I've heard every justification, every excuse, every attempt to minimize deliberate crimes as unfortunate mistakes. She paused. What you did was not the result of pressure or impaired judgment. It was a calculated, sophisticated scheme to defraud multiple victims while living a double life. You hired an actor. You paid for extensive surgery. You systematically moved millions offshore while your imposter maintained your domestic life. This required planning, resources, and sustained deception. Henry's lawyer started to object, but Judge Brennan held up her hand. The victims include your wife, your business partner, your clients, and your own mother, whose trust fund you plundered. The total financial damage exceeds $2.4 million. The psychological damage is incalculable. She looked directly at Henry. Taking into account the severity of the crimes, the number of victims, the calculated nature of your actions, and your complete lack of genuine remorse, I sentence you to 18 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. You will also make full restitution to all victims. Eva cried out, a sound of pure anguish. Emily buried her face in her hands. 18 years. Henry would be 63 when he got out. As marshals moved forward, Henry finally looked at me. Really looked at me. I saw fear in his eyes. And something else, not regret for what he'd done to me, but regret for getting caught. For underestimating me. I held his gaze until they led him away. Then it was over. 6 months after Henry's sentencing, I stood in a new office overlooking Lake Michigan. The brass plaque on the door read, Stackhouse Forensic Consulting, Identity Verification and Asset Protection. I'd kept the name deliberately. Not because I wanted to remember Henry, but because I'd earned it. I'd built this business from the wreckage of my marriage, and I wasn't going to let him take that from me too. Rose had joined me as a full partner, bringing her investigative expertise and law enforcement contacts. We'd hired 3 additional investigators, all women with backgrounds in financial forensics, cybersecurity, and private investigation. Our client list had grown beyond anything I'd anticipated. The media coverage had positioned me as an expert in marriage fraud and financial deception. Women from across the country were reaching out, some with legitimate concerns, some with paranoia that needed addressing, but all deserving of respect and careful investigation. My phone buzzed. My assistant, Maya, spoke through the intercom. Ms. Stackhouse, your 2 p.m. appointment is here. A Ms. Jessica Martinez. Send her in. Jessica Martinez was in her early 40s, impeccably dressed, with the kind of controlled anxiety I recognized from my own mirror 8 months ago. Miss Stackhouse, she said, shaking my hand. Thank you for seeing me on short notice. Please, call me Blaire. Sit down and tell me everything. She took a shaky breath. 3 weeks ago, my husband said he had a business trip to Singapore. 5 days. Standard client meeting. But my sister, she works at an art gallery in Soho, she saw him there. At a gallery opening. With a woman. When I asked him about it later, he had an explanation that seemed reasonable. But then it happened again. Different city, different circumstances. I was already pulling up a new case file. Has he been traveling more than usual? Yes. Almost every other week now. Always for work, always with receipts and itineraries and explanations that make sense. But something feels wrong. Everything feels wrong. Your instincts are telling you something's wrong because something is wrong, I said firmly. Healthy relationships don't create this kind of persistent unease. We're going to investigate. We're going to find the truth. And whatever that truth is, you're going to be able to handle it. Because knowing is always better than living in uncertainty. Her eyes filled with tears. Everyone tells me I'm paranoid. That successful marriages require trust. That I'm creating problems where none exist. My therapist suggested I might have anxiety issues. I knew that feeling. The gaslighting. The self-doubt. The way everyone else's certainty made you question your own perceptions. Jessica, I said, I'm going to tell you something I wish someone had told me. Your instincts are not anxiety. They're data. They're your subconscious mind recognizing patterns before your conscious mind can articulate them. Trust that. Trust yourself. You really think something's wrong? I think we need to find out. And I promise you this, whether we find evidence of deception or we find that your fears are unfounded, you'll have answers. Real, documented answers. No more guessing. No more uncertainty. She nodded, wiping her eyes. What do we do first? First, I need you to tell me every single detail that's felt off. Dates, times, conversations, anything that didn't quite add up. Then we start building a timeline. For the next 90 minutes, I listened to Jessica's story. I took notes. I asked questions. I watched her move from uncertain and defensive to focused and determined. This was what I did now. This was who I'd become. Not the naive woman who'd trusted completely. Not the victim of an elaborate scheme. But someone who'd survived betrayal and turned that survival into purpose. Henry had tried to erase me, replace me, steal everything I'd built. Instead, he'd accidentally created something he never anticipated, a woman who understood exactly how deception worked, who could spot fraud in its earliest stages, who knew how to document evidence that would hold up in any court. He'd wanted to make me a victim. He'd made me a weapon. And every day, I used that weapon to help women protect themselves from people who thought they were too smart to get caught. After Jessica left, with a plan, a timeline, and the first shred of hope I'd seen in her eyes, I stood at my office window, looking out at the lake. Rose appeared in the doorway. How'd it go? She's going to be okay. We'll find the truth, whatever it is. You're good at this, you know. Helping people. I learned from the best teachers. Pain and betrayal are excellent motivators. Rose smiled. Still, you could have walked away after Henry's sentencing. Taken your restitution money, started over somewhere quiet. But you didn't. No, I agreed. I didn't. Because I'd learned something through all of this. The best response to betrayal isn't destruction, though I'd certainly destroyed Henry. It isn't revenge, though I'd gotten that too. It's transformation. Henry had taken my trust, my marriage, my sense of security. But he'd accidentally given me something more valuable, the knowledge that I could survive anything. The skills to help others do the same. And the understanding that real strength doesn't come from never being broken. It comes from rebuilding yourself into something better than you were before. My phone buzzed with a new email. Another potential client, another woman who'd noticed inconsistencies, another person who needed someone to believe her. I opened the email and started reading. Outside my window, Lake Michigan stretched toward the horizon, vast and cold and beautiful. I'd survived drowning in those waters. Now I pulled others from the depths before they went under completely. Henry was in federal prison. Dorothy was serving a reduced sentence for cooperation. Jack was teaching ethics at a community theater in Los Angeles, using his story as a cautionary tale. Eva had slowly, painfully, begun to acknowledge that I'd never been the problem. And I was here, in my office overlooking the lake, helping Jessica and all the women who would come after her. Not for revenge. Not for vindication. But because I'd learned the most important lesson of all: you don't overcome betrayal by letting it destroy you. You overcome it by becoming someone stronger, more capable, more purposeful than the person you were before. That was my victory. That was my transformation. And as I replied to the email, scheduling another consultation, I felt something I hadn't felt in 8 months. Not closure. Not peace. Not happiness. But purpose. Real, earned, hard-won purpose. And that was enough. That was everything. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.